I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Brian Hope, who will share with us thoughts, reflections on the foundation for the Liberty ships and the Victory ships.
Considering the truly anemic shipbuilding efforts currently ongoing in the United States, ship construction in this country during World War II reached a level almost beyond belief. Naval ship construction, battleships, aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, submarines, and numerous smaller Navy vessels consisted of only one aspect of our shipbuilding program. In terms of sheer numbers, shipbuilding undertaken by the United States Maritime Commission on the order of 6,000 ships of all types far exceeded that of any shipbuilding program in history, before or since. The program included dry cargo ships of many types, a variety of tankers, troop ships, tugboats, even escort carriers and patrol craft for the Navy. Liberty ships were the single largest type, with more than 2,700 sliding down the ways at 13 different yards on all three of our coasts, from late 1941 to late 1945. Slow but numerous, Liberties filled the wartime need of delivering a basic class of ships faster than they could be sunk by the enemy. By mid-war, the Liberties were serving their purpose, and the Commission developed a new, more efficient class of ship that would be better suited to post-war operation. While the new design would have about the same cargo capacity as the Liberties, around 10,000 tons, it would be fitted with more efficient cargo gear, and most important, with a more powerful steam turbine power plant, replacing the reciprocating steam plant of the Liberty ships. Those engines were easier to build, but were very low power. The new ships would be called Victory ships, in keeping with their purpose, the planned post-war use. Two power plants of steam turbine designs were to be used. The lower powered ships, called the AP2 class, would have 6,000 shaft horsepower compared to the Liberty ships of 2,400, giving them a speed of 15 knots. The more powerful Victory ships, called the AP3 class, were capable of 18 knots with steam turbine engines developing 8,500 horsepower. In addition, one diesel-powered Victory ship was built. It was designated as AP4. A total of 531 Victory ships were built, 441 cargo ships, and 117 attack transports, the AP5 class, with the 8,500 horsepower engines designed to carry a large number of troops as well as cargo. These ships were manned by U.S. Navy crews. Several shipyards which have been building Liberty ships converted to the construction of Victories. The first to make the switch was Oregon Shipbuilding, which began the construction of Victory ships in November of 1943. California Shipbuilding in Los Angeles followed a few weeks later. Kaiser's Richmond, California Yard Number 2 in San Francisco was next, laying their first Victory keel in January of 1944. Kaiser's Richmond Yard Number 1 followed in June of 44. The last yard to make the switch was the Bethlehem Fairfield Yard in Baltimore, which laid its first Victory ship keel a few days after the Richmond Yard Number 1 in June of 44. Fairfield would go on to build 93 Victory ships after completing 384 Liberties and 30 LST landing ships for the Royal Navy. It was the largest output of any single shipyard. in the country. While more than 220 Liberty ships were lost during the war, only 4 Victory ships were lost. 3 to kamikaze strikes off Okinawa, and 1 at the Port Chicago, California ammunition depot explosion. Following World War II, 179 Liberty ships were sold to private shipping lines in the U.S. and overseas. The rest were laid up in the National Defense Reserve Fleet in 8 locations around the country to be reactivated if the need arose, as in the Korean War, the Suez Canal closing, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, by the author's count, 102 Victory ships were reactivated. By the early 1970s, most all of those ships were sold for scrap. 1 Victory ship was sunk by Viet Cong mines on the Saigon River, with the loss of 8 crew members in the engine room. By 2006, the last batch of reserve fleet ships, 17 of them, began to be sold for scrap. Today, only 3 Victory ships survive as museum ships: the Lane Victory, the Red Oak Victory, and the American Victory. The latter having been reactivated at a cost of $2.5 million in 1985 as a test to determine how much effort and money would be required to return a 40-year-old Victory ship to active service. The Lane Victory was returned to active service as an operating museum ship in 1982, and the Red Oak Victory, last survivor of Kaiser's World War II built ships, is berthed in Richmond, California, near where she was built, with plans to reactivate her to steam around San Francisco Bay on day trips with hundreds of passengers. Naming the Victory ships. Unlike the Liberties, which were in general named for individuals no longer living who had made a significant contribution to American life, the Victory ships were named for American towns and colleges all over the country. The huge fleet of cargo ships of all types built during World War II were inspiring examples of what Americans could do when called upon to serve their country in an emergency. Thank you. Well, I think I got through that very quickly, so I'm going to tell you a Victory ship sea story. Most of you have seen the photographs now of the Burbank Victory, which was the one I sailed on. I made a almost round-the-world trip from Baltimore to the Suez Canal, to Vietnam, and then across the Pacific to San Francisco. That ship continued to sail without me for several more years before she too was sold for scrap. We had an interesting situation with that ship. The captain, the original captain of the ship, tended to drink a little too much, shall we say. And he drank a little too much, a lot. And I was staying with a friend on Long Island at the time that the ship was being reactivated at the Todd Shipyard in Brooklyn. And the fellow who was who'd taken the job as chief mate picked me up in the morning, every morning, and brought me into the shipyard. And we were working there for probably 2 weeks, getting the ship ready to get underway. This one particular morning we got there, and as we walked up to the gangway, one of the ABs said, Mr. Hope, there's a fire in the captain's office. We can't get in, the door's locked. Well, if any of you are familiar with Victory ships, the room situation at the forward end of the deck house on the main deck, the port side is the chief engineer's office and bedroom. The starboard side is the captain's office, and then on midships, there's a large room which is the ship's office. Now, there is an entryway into the captain's office on the starboard side of the center room. So that door was open. So I opened the door and the smoke started pouring out. So I did what I've been taught in the firefighting class, get down on the deck, crawl through, and the door to the captain's office was open, so I crawled in there, and the smoke was really thick. But down near the deck, I could see a pair of legs and shoes hanging off the bed, just sitting there. So I crawled over to the door to the passageway and unlocked the door and let it open, and the guys came in with the fire hose. It turned out that I grabbed the captain and kind of helped get him out of there. It turned out that he had, in his cups, had been smoking and caught his mattress on fire. So anyway, he survived, but he was no longer captain the next day. We had a new man. So the chief mate took over as the master. We sailed a couple of days later from Baltimore to Norfolk. The next morning, after we got to Norfolk, I went into the captain's office. He was the new captain was sitting there with a half-gallon bottle of Johnny Walker Red sitting on his desk. I didn't exactly say, "Oh no," but I said something similar to that, which I won't repeat. And we had a rough time the rest of the trip with the new captain. But anyway, that's my sea story.